There is a particular kind of silence that feels like drowning. Not the silence of peace, not the silence of completion, but the silence that hangs in the air after someone you loved has made it clear that your presence is no longer required. You replay the last conversation in your mind, again and again, dissecting every word, every pause, every micro-expression. Did I say something wrong? Did I miss something? If I had just been different, quieter, funnier, more understanding, less, would they have stayed? And so begins the spiral, the quiet obsession, the desperate archaeology of your own flaws. You become a detective of your own failures, searching for the exact moment you lost them, certain that if you can find it, you can undo it. But here is what you need to hear, and I need you to hear it with your whole body. They did not leave because you were not enough. They left because you were too much. Not in the way you think, not in the way that makes you defective, but because something in them broke open when you got close, and their entire system is built to run from that break. You are not the reason they left. You are the mirror they could not survive looking into. And understanding this distinction is the first crack in the prison you have built around your own heart. Let me take you inside the mind of someone with a dismissive avoidant attachment style. This is not an excuse. This is not a justification. This is an explanation. Because explanation is the beginning of freedom. When a person with this wiring falls in love, truly falls, something neurological occurs that feels to them like an emergency. Their amygdala, the ancient alarm system buried in the brainstem, fires a warning signal. It does not fire because there is actual danger. It fires because closeness has become neurologically encoded with danger. The feeling of being needed, of having someone depend on them emotionally, triggers a cortisol spike. The same chemical cascade that would activate if a predator were approaching. Their nervous system does not distinguish between love and threat. It only knows that intimacy feels like a trap, and the only survival response available is distance. Now understand this. They do not decide to pull away. It is not a choice in the way you understand choice. It is an involuntary neurological retreat, as automatic as flinching when something comes toward your face. The part of their brain responsible for connection, the same part that produces oxytocin, the bonding chemical, goes offline. In its place, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex activates, the region responsible for logical problem-solving and emotional suppression. They literally think their way out of feeling. They rationalize their way out of you. They tell themselves you were not right for them, that the relationship was too complicated, that they need space. And they believe every word, because believing it is the only way to make the panic stop. So when they go quiet, when they stop reaching out, when they respond to your messages with one-word answers or nothing at all, they are not calculating how to hurt you. They are managing an internal crisis that you cannot see. The silence they leave you in is not a test. It is not a strategy. It is the sound of someone protecting themselves from a feeling they do not have the architecture to hold. Here is the brutal truth that will either save you or destroy you, depending on where you are in your own healing. When a dismissive avoidant is truly done with you, you will not get closure. You will not get an explanation that satisfies you. You will not get a conversation where they admit they were wrong, or that they loved you, or that they regret walking away. What you will get is silence, and that silence will feel like violence. But the violence is not theirs. It is the violence of your own mind, relentlessly trying to make sense of someone who operated on a completely different operating system. And you need to stop waiting for them to come back. Not because they never will, Sometimes they do, briefly, when the loneliness gets louder than the fear. But because your waiting is not love. Your waiting is a wound. Your waiting is your nervous system still trying to negotiate safety from a person who could never give it to you, because they do not have it to give. You are not waiting for them. You are waiting for the version of yourself that you believe you lost when they left. You are waiting to feel whole again. And I need to tell you, you will not find that wholeness in someone who flinched every time you reached for them. So let me give you the single most important concept you need to internalize. And I want you to sit with this, because everything else depends on it. The concept is non-reactivity. Not indifference, not coldness, not the performance of not caring. I am talking about the deep, settled stillness that comes when you stop treating their silence as a message and start understanding it as a system. When someone with avoidant wiring goes silent, your nervous system interprets it as rejection, as danger, as proof that you are unworthy of love. And your nervous system will push you to respond, to send one more text, to ask one more question, to prove that you are not the burden they have decided you are. Every single time you do this, you are not reaching for them. You are reaching for yourself. You are trying to reach a version of yourself that feels safe again, and you have mistakenly placed that safety inside someone who treats intimacy like a threat. But here is what happens when you stop. Here is what the physics of this interaction looks like from the outside. Right now, in this very moment, you are giving them an enormous amount of psychic power. You are thinking about them constantly. You are analyzing their last message, imagining their next one, rehearsing conversations you will never have. Your dopamine system is fully activated because intermittent reinforcement, the unpredictable pattern of their attention and withdrawal, has created an addiction response in your brain that is chemically identical to gambling. You are not in love. You are in withdrawal. And they know it, even if they do not consciously know it. They can feel your energy, your need, your desperation leaking through every interaction. And every time they feel it, their avoidance system deepens its conviction that leaving was the right call. But something shifts when you stop. Something almost magical, almost cruel in its precision. The moment you genuinely, viscerally, deeply stop chasing, not as a strategy, not as a maneuver, but as a genuine internal surrender, the dynamic inverts. I want you to feel what I am saying here, not just hear it. Imagine them checking their phone, casually, the way they do, and for the first time in weeks or months, there is nothing from you. No plea, no question, no carefully crafted message designed to make them feel guilty or curious or responsible. Just silence. And in that silence, something in them will flicker. Not love, not yet, but curiosity. That is all. Curiosity. The question they never expected to ask themselves: what if they are okay without me? And that question, that tiny, involuntary flicker of doubt, is where the real game begins. Because what they do next will reveal everything. If they are truly done, genuinely neurologically finished with you, the silence will remain. They will not be curious. They will not reach out. The absence will be complete, clean, final. And this is the clarity you have been starving yourself for. This is the answer you have been digging for in every text you almost sent. When you stop performing your pain, and they do not notice. When you stop existing in relation to them, and the world does not tilt. When you go silent, and the silence is met with silence. That is the answer. That is when you know. But if something in them stirs, If they text you something small, something seemingly insignificant, a meme, a question about your day, a random memory, pay attention. Not to the content, to the energy. Are they reaching because they miss you, or because they miss being needed? Are they reaching because they have thought about you, or because they have felt you pulling away and their system registered a loss? These are not the same thing, and the difference will determine whether this cycle repeats or finally breaks. Here is your warning, and I want you to hear it with the same urgency you have been giving to analyzing their last text. If you respond to that flicker with the same desperate energy you have always brought to them, if you reply immediately, if you fill the space with warmth and need and relief, you will reset the pattern entirely. They will feel your hunger. Your hunger will feel like safety to them because your hunger means they still have power over you, and power is the only form of connection an avoidant system can tolerate. You will have handed them back the exact dynamic that allowed them to leave in the first place, and they will leave again. Not because they do not care, but because the way you care, that much, that openly, that completely, is still the thing their system interprets as danger. This is not about punishing them. This is not about making them suffer. This is about protecting the part of you that still believes you are worth chasing. Because here is what you do not see yet, what you cannot see through the haze of your own grief. You have been chasing someone who was running from themselves. You have been pouring your emotional completeness into a person who was not equipped to hold it. And every time they flinched, every time they pulled away, every time they made you feel like you were too much, you internalized that flinch. You started to believe that your depth, your intensity, your capacity for love was a flaw. It is not. It is the most beautiful and terrifying thing about you. And the person who could not survive it was never going to be the one to save you from your own belief that you needed saving. I want to talk to you now about who you are becoming, because this, all of this, the pain, the silence, the unraveling, is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of the version of you that was waiting beneath the surface all along. The version who did not need to be chosen, who did not need to be enough for someone who could not feel enough themselves, who did not need to understand every silence, decode every withdrawal, or negotiate for basic emotional presence. You have spent so long trying to be the kind of person who could make an avoidant person feel safe. And what you did not know is that you were already safe. You were already whole. You were already enough. You just could not feel it because you were too busy trying to create it inside someone who could not hold it for you. This is your identity shift. This is the moment. Right now. You are not the person who got left. You are not the person who was not enough. You are the person who survived an intimacy disorder that was never yours to fix. You are the person who learned that love is not supposed to feel like chaos, and connection is not supposed to require a survival manual. You are the person who finally stopped performing your pain for someone who could not witness it, and started witnessing yourself. And from this place, from this grounded, clear, unshakable place, you will not chase anyone again. Not because you do not love, but because you finally know what love is. It is not the desperate reaching for someone who keeps stepping back. It is the quiet recognition that you were always allowed to stay. And now, at last, you are the kind of person who knows when to walk away.